Okay, so now that we have
Hello guys, morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Ah, sounds like you guys just awaking as well. Well, this is quite an early class. Try and fix this thing here. Yeah. All right, cool. That's a little better. Okay, so welcome again. Tell me something. Where are you guys now in design studio? Have you done any critiques yet? Assignments yet? Anybody?
Repeat.
I was asking, where are you now in design studio? Have you done any presentations yet? Any assignments as yet?
We're doing like a yeah, I'm being annoyed right now. We're doing site analysis right now on Port Royal. We're just presenting. I think the last thing for us to do right now is hand in our booklet.
Ah, cool. So your housing project is gonna be in Port Royal?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Cool. That means you guys so to do the site visit, you actually went there. You got the bus and everything.
We never did get no bus, but we did go there.
Yeah. I was trying to for advanced computing 1, which you will do next year. We do have a site visit element, but the bus is always a tricky thing. I remember a time when we used to go some far place like Ochi and Trelawney to do the site visit. But yeah, transportation with the university is a bit tricky. So the last one that we did, we had to work out like a carpooling arrangement. And this year, this year is a little better than last time. The year before last, we had to go to UE because that was the site that we could access. But this time, I think they're going to somewhere else in Kingston, right? Anyway. But yeah, anyway, all right, that's good. That's good. So you guys basically finish your site analysis now, and I guess you're gonna start the design on your well, do you know whether if it's apartments or townhouses as yet? Guys?
No, sir, we don't know yet.
Yeah. All right, cool. All right. Well, the idea is that before you start to get in the production of your drawings in your design studio, in computing, we would have just about finished the major part of our assignment. So that's why, I'm just checking in because I want to make sure that by the time you guys are ready to start the production of your drawings, you would have done, some similar work in 3D modeling. So, so today we are gonna let's see where we are first, right? And then we look at where we're going. Let's see. I had marked some work. Oh, but I didn't mark any. Okay, so bring up the website here. All right. So I guess you guys would have seen some updates with the class participation activity. Let's take a look on our timeline. So today is the 6th. So we are about right here. So we are at the beginning of checkpoint 3, right? Checkpoint 3 is going to be over 20%, guys. So this is the big one, right? We're going to continue our development on the lookout tower, right? So today we're going to start looking at walls and openings, and of course we'll have the presentation later today on topic 5 and 6, right? All right. So remember, guys, if you want to keep track of when stuff is due, always take a look on the timeline. Checkpoint 2, time has already passed. So if you're submitting checkpoint 2 now, it is in the realm of 1% per day, right? Hopefully most people are at checkpoint 3 now, where we're going to start to do the walls. And your model, let me bring up model here. Come on, Revit. Here we go. Here we go. Right. Let me just open this file here. So, illustration. Okay, here we go. All right. Let's give a little while to open. Right. So, not that one. There we go. No, team that one. I'm just finding my version, guys. Cause remember that we are working on this together. So remember what I said. As long as you are where I am at, you are in a good position, right? So this is where I am at. Right. So this is where I am at. So this is what you guys should have, something like this, where you have the site. Let's look on that in 3D, right? You should have your foundations and an idea of your terrain and your trees. And now we're going to start to work on the walls. All right, guys? So this is where we should be. And we're going to be working on checkpoint 3 for a while, as you can see here. Pretty much, right, we're going to be on checkpoint 3 pretty much for all of October, right? And if you take a look back on your handout here, right, so this is checkpoint 2, checkpoint 3, right? So for checkpoint 3, we're dealing with the total building model. That means that it's going to include the walls and the roof and the stairs. So that's why this checkpoint 3 is the most points, because we're going to be building the ground floor walls, upper floor walls, stairs, and roof, right? Some of you, we should also have a railing somewhere in the model as well. So we're going to look at how to do that. Now we're not going to do all that in one day, right? So we're going to do that over the next, call it about 3 weeks or so. All right. All right. Okay. Now we are going to do a class activity today. All right. And that class activity is going to help us throughout the rest of the modules. All right. All right. So remember, guys, so class activity means that we need to do it here in class and we submit it today. So I want everyone to just open up Revit. And we're going to talk a little bit about walls in Revit. Here we go. So if you look on the tips and guides section of on our whiteboard, right? That's over here. You will notice that we have a little part that talk about the walls, right? And we are going to be doing a stud wall for our model, right? So I think you guys would have done this in construction technology. Am I right, guys? Do you do wall types still in construction technology? Anybody?
can't remember.
All right. So the main idea here
We're
is
gonna
that
go over to a 3D.
walls in Revit can be represented different ways. In our case, we're going to be doing a timber wall. And how a timber wall works is that you have these studs that are inside the wall. You have a frame, and then you have these studs, and then you cover the stud on each side with some form of cladding. Usually it's plywood, and then maybe on top of the plywood you put like a wood siding or something like that. You know, we don't use wood. We don't use timber walls a lot in Jamaica, primarily because timber costs a bit more. Because we don't usually use our trees for construction. We normally import them. It's a small island, so we don't have as much trees. The little that we have to save. And also, we have a cement factory on the island as well, so that makes cement prices for us not so crazy, even though it might still look expensive if you guys have ever had to buy bags of cement, right? But it would cost more if we didn't have a cement factory. In any case, we have also hurricanes to deal with, and hurricanes and timber construction don't play very well, right? So because of those myriad of reasons, we use concrete construction most times, block and steel. Sometimes we do use timber, and when you're putting up a timber building, it's a little bit more, I would say, it takes a little bit more to represent in drawings, right? Now, when we're in Revit, we are going to be using the wall tool, and we're going to be using the wall tool in 3 different ways, right? For our exercise now, I want you guys to jump into Revit, and we're going to look a little bit on how we can create walls in Revit. Now, you don't have to I wouldn't use the project file for this. I would just open a separate Revit model. And we're just going to use the first, just like last class, we're going to use the first hour to kind of go through this. And then the next half an hour to start the checkpoint tool. All right, guys?
View.
So,
Right,
let's take a look at this.
Blank project.
So I want you guys to start up a blank project. Right?
Now, before we do our examples, I want to show you this slide that we have here. And in this slide, we're talking about the BIM level of detail, right? So LOD means level of detail. And whenever we're creating any object using building information modeling or any form of modeling, there are different levels of detail that we use depending on the type of drawing that we are creating. So in our example that we have here, if we take a look on this chair that we have here, we have different ways of representing this chair model, starting from a 2D symbol. So for example, if you're showing a floor plan, a 2D symbol is fine. In some cases, depending on the type of plan, a bounding box is fine. And for example, the purpose of having a bounding box is we can get the overall shapes, but also we can get the height, the overall height information of the object as well. Whereas the 2D symbol will give us the overall area, but it also gives us an indication of what type of object because it's shaped like a chair, right? Now, moving on from that, we have a kind of a shape bounding box, and this is where the bounding box takes the rough shape of the object. So you can identify that, okay, this is basically a chair. And for example, you might use something like this. For example, if we are going to be maybe working on something conceptually, maybe we're just exploring how things fit in a space, right? There are certain software that only works with bounding box, for example. Now, the next step above that now would be where all the major elements are modeled. So for example, for the chair, you have the back of the chair, the handle, the feet. So we can look at this model and say, this is a type of office chair that looks like this. For example, if it was a stool or a high chair, it would look a little different. but only the major elements are modeled. So for example, the back on the seat and stuff like that. And then the highest fidelities you have will be for photorealistic. So for example, whenever you want to render stuff in photorealistic quality, you would want to use a level of detail that is high. So not just showing the major elements, but even showing them with materials, showing the curves, how the edges of the material of the object look. So for example, you can actually see the shape of the chair that's here versus this that's just here, right? And this exists not just for furniture elements, but for any object in BIM. So for example, from a structural point of view, we could show a symbol for a column, we could show a bounding box, or we could even show it in a more shaped way that we know, oh, this is exactly what the column looks like. Going up further, we can show how the connections are made to the elements, and a step further will be like the fullest fidelity. Now, in addition to showing the visual part of level of detail, there's also the information part of it. The information, which is the I in BIM, right? So, for example, at this level of detail, you might bundle it with, it's a chair, that's it. But for example, at a higher level of detail, we might show, you know, the type of chair, the manufacturer of the chair, which model it is, and then we show a much higher detail model of it. So this level of detail is what we're going to consider. This is the primary challenge that BIM brings to the professional that's creating drawings, because currently we have to make this decision for almost every element in our drawing. Are we going to show it as a symbol? Are we going to show it in the highest fidelity? And this goes for wall, windows, furniture, just about any object. So if we take a look here on our wall that we're about to create, we would ask ourselves, okay, what level of detail do we want to represent this wall? Is it on a floor plan where we just need to know the spaces? So, we can just use a symbol. Is it going to be a pull-out section where we need to show all the members and how they connect, for example, like this? So then we're going to be either modeling the major elements or the highest quality. Usually when we create stuff in BIM, it is usually within this bracket. The photorealistic quality is normally for when we want to go into rendering and that kind of stuff. Now, in some cases, when you do a BIM model, the objective is to do a rendering. So you might want to use some elements of the highest quality, right? In some cases. But in most of the cases, maybe we're doing a floor plan, we're doing a section, and we can pretty much use any one of these fidelities, quality model here, right? So what we're going to do is we are going to explore drawing this wall using different levels of detail. So we're going to try it out in this level. Then we are going to also try it out in the 2D, in the bounding box, actually, not the 2D. Right. So, and then we're going to actually try it in the highest level of fidelity. And we're going to build a wall sample using these three methods to see what does it take to build it in these three methods. Because the other factor that we have to consider here is time, right? So in some cases, it might be worth to build something at a high quality based on the time, or maybe based on what you expect to get from that model. So for example, this chair, we need to render it, so we're going to build it at the highest quality. Maybe for this quality, we're going to cut a section through it, so we need to show the shape of the chair, right? So we're going to kind of investigate how to get this type of modeling and this kind of workflow, how to think about going about this. Okay, so we're going to have this model be here. We're going to put it over to the side, and our objective is that we want to create this wall that's here, right? So we're going to investigate how it is that we can do that. So we're going to put this Revit over here, and we're not going to use the project tab just yet. So we are going to stick that down here and make that smaller for now. Okay, so we have this, I'm in the 3D space for this project. Now, obviously this is a wall, So, and there is a wall tool in Revit. But what we want to do is, remember, there are different levels of detail. So what would it take if we want to model the highest fidelity of this stud wall? Meaning we want to show all the stud elements, all the connections, all the angle plates. How would we get that done? Well, we definitely could not use the wall tool because the wall tool doesn't allow for that. We would have to actually model the elements. Now, if we want to model something in Revit, and we're only going to do just a short sample of this wall. So we are going to use what is called the component tool. So if we head over to the component tool, and this might look a little different for you, if I make this window a little bigger, where something like that, then you will notice that this is probably what it looks like on your screen. Remember, when you adjust the width of Revit, the ribbon changes the symbols so that everything can fit. So the component tool in Revit is pretty much any object, just about any object. So if I click on it, this is asking me to save. I'm not going to save right now. These are just a bunch of components. So for example, this is a water closet. If I click that there and place it, I have a water closet. There is a sink, there are pipes, there are openings. Let me just pick another. Let me pick the sink here, right? And components have different rules attached to them. So for example, I can't just stick a sink in this open area. I get this error message saying that we could not find an appropriate host. And that's because this type of component has to be placed on a face, or it has to be placed on a work plane. So notice when I hover over an element here, then I can place this component. So some components have different rules. Now in our case, we want to build up this wall using components. And if we look in our components list here, we don't have a component that's called, I don't know, stud timber, right? So in this case where you don't have a component, then you create one from scratch. Now to do that, when you go to the component tool, instead of clicking on the tool, you're going to click on this down arrow and you're going to go to model in place. And what this does, it turns Revit into a mode for modeling. So it changes the icons and everything, almost as if you had a program within a program. And it zooms into this new interface so that it gives you the tool to create this model, whatever it is. Now in our case, what we want to create is a piece of lumber. That's it, just a piece of lumber. And then we can move it to create the wall plate, the sole plate, and the vertical studs. But we need to have literally a piece of lumber so that we can do that. So when we go to model in place, Revit is going to ask us, hey, okay, what kind of object are you planning to model? Is it casework, ceilings, columns? And you can pick one which will help you to keep your drawings organized, or you can choose generic model. So in our case, we are creating something that we can define. It's a piece, it's a structure of a wall. So we're gonna categorize it under, let's categorize it under structural framing, because that's what we're doing. So we choose OK, and we're gonna call this structural framing stud, right? Because remember, we're just modeling one stud, and then we're gonna duplicate it in many places. So we're gonna choose OK. All right, now take a look on the ribbon. Notice you don't have the architecture and the structure ribbon. Now you have these different tools. And this is because you are now in a special modeling mode of Revit. Now Revit is still running, like your project environment is still running in the background. But in order to create this custom element, Revit has to kind of zoom in to this model, allow you to create it, and then you zoom back to your project, and then the model that you created, you can put it and rotate it and put it in different areas, right? So while we're in this model space now, and we're just going to make a simple extrusion. So I can click somewhere. I'm going to actually just click the box tool here, and if I start to draw, I'm going to make this, I'm just going to draw it first like that, and then I'm going to modify it. So I'm going to go to modify, click on this. So I want this to be a 4 inches and this to be 2 inches. So it's a 2x4 basically. And that's it. Now we went into extrude. So now we have to confirm the extrusion. Now this is the extrusion start, which is 0, and the extrusion end, but we can always edit this. So we could make it be 3 feet long, doesn't matter. And then we're going to tick the yes. So this is an element that we have modeled, right? So I want you to kind of imagine it this way. Now when we click finish model, and we're back into the project mode now. So if you look at the top, you notice that the icons and stuff are different. And now we have a piece of lumber that we created. And if we click on it, we can see that we created this structural framing object. Now I want you, before we continue, I just want us to kind of understand what is happening here, right? Because this can be a little confusing. Now we have the project environment, and this is the environment that we use Revit in. This is where we create things like levels and objects and all of that stuff. Now in this case, we want to create a piece of lumber, right? So in order to create this piece of lumber, we have to enter in what is called model in place mode. So imagine you have the program and you kind of zoom into this now new model in place mode. So you're inside of Revit, but now you're inside of a mode in Revit called model in place. And this is why your icons and stuff has changed. Now, when you're in this mode, you get new things you can do: extrude, sweep, revolve, you know, you can do all sorts of stuff. Now, in order to create this piece of lumber, we need to use the extrude tool. So then we zoom into the extrude mode, which is inside of the model in place mode, which is inside of Revit. So if you understand, there are like 3 different levels, and you go down to this extrude mode. And what we did, we created this object and we extruded it. Then we checked yes. When we check yes, we came back out to the model in place mode. And then when we say, yes, this is the model that we want to create, we click yes again, and then we are back out to the project environment mode. So that is how modeling custom objects in Revit works, right? So here we can see that we're back in the project mode, and this is the object that we created. Okay, let's do an example. Suppose we wanted to, let's say, model a different object that's kind of sticking off of this object here. Let's say we wanted to create this element here. Now, in order to do that, we could create a next element, extrude it, then come back out and then attach it to this element, to this object here. But instead, what we're going to do, and I want us to see if we can keep track of how this works, right? So remember, we are in the project environment. We created this object using model in place. Now, if we want to modify or add to or subtract from that object, we need to now go into model in place mode within Revit. So in order to do that, we need to click this object here and we can go edit in place. So now we have now gone into the model in place mode, and if you look, our icons have changed, right? So back to our analogy here, we were in the project environment and now we have gone into the model in place environment. Within this environment, we have these new tools. So that is what you're seeing under create. You have these new tools which you didn't have in the project environment. That's the key thing to understand. So it's almost like a program within a program. So when I'm back in this environment, I see this object that I created. Now I could, for example, edit this object by going to edit extrusion, and now I'm gone back down to the extrusion, and like, let's say I wanted to maybe create, I don't know, something else like this. And what I'm doing is just, I'm going to edit this. I'm going to use the slice tool and cut this here, tool here, and cut this here. And then I'm going to use the trim tool and join this like that, and join this and join this there. Then I'm going to say, so right now, in order for me to modify my extrusion, going back to my analogy, I had to go inside of extrude mode, which is inside of model in place mode. And all of that is inside of Revit, right? So I'm in this mode now, and I've now edited this shape. And when I click the yes, bam, I now have a new shape. And when I click yes, I'm now back to model in place mode. Now, I can model more things in this mode, for example. So let's say, for example, I wanted to create another extrusion. So I could choose extrude. Now, notice how this is now grayed out, because remember, this is a separate extrusion and I'm creating a new extrusion, but within the model in place mode, right? So on this new extrusion, I'm going to go to set work plane. That's what this is. And your work plane is an area that you're working inside. It's like a flat area, and that is the surface on which you work. Currently, if I go to show here, this is my work plane. It's a big flat area, as you can see there. And hence, when I draw something, I extrude from my work plane. So if I wanted to use this surface as my work plane, I would have to go to set, and then I would say maybe pick a new work plane, and then I can choose here. So now this is my new work plane. So hence, when I go to extrude, I can draw a shape like this, and I can say how much extrusion, and then I can click OK. So now I have two objects. I have an object here and I have an object here. So back to my analogy here, what I actually did, I'm going to put this down here, put this here, right? Because I didn't use these tools, sweep and revolve. I used extrude. I created an object. Then I created another extrude object. So I have two extrude objects inside my mode. I could have created an object using the revolve tool, but the truth is I didn't. So I'm going to delete this here now. So in my model in place mode, I have two objects that I created using extrude. I went into this extrude here and modified it, came back out, then created a next extrude, went into it, created it, then came back out. So now in my model in place, I have two objects here. Now remember, I'm still inside of model in place. I haven't come back out to my project environment as yet. I'm still in this special mode. It's kind of like a little sandbox that I'm messing around and creating stuff in, but I can't use it in my project until I come out of the sandbox, right? So to do that, I need to click this yes here. Now I'm back in the project mode. And now if I click on this, notice that this is just one object, right? So back to my analogy, I've gone back into my project environment. This is where I have my levels and all of the stuff that I used to create a BIM model. And I have this model in place element that is here. And this model in place element, everything inside here is now a single object. The entire model in place is now a single object inside of my project environment. I can move it, I can scale it, I can rotate it. Doesn't matter, because this mode that I went into, I created objects, and then I'm back into the project mode, and I can even duplicate it. Like I can do any amount of things with it after I come out of this mode. So for example, this object that I have here, I could copy it any amount of times, because all of this is linked to the same model in place mode. So for example, I could now go to edit this again. So essentially what I've done, I've gone into this model in place mode. Then let's say I want to change this extrusion. So I now need to go into this extrusion. Here it is. And now I can change it. So let's say I wanted to add a curve, right? So this is now what I want to model. Let's say I want to change it to, and I'm just drawing kind of a random shape here. And then I'm going to use my trim tool, extend, let's do that. Let's delete that. Then I choose OK. So now I have gone into this element and I've changed it. Now, of course, I'm going to click finish to come back to my project environment. And now you can see that I went into this model in place, edited it. And of course, I can just duplicate this again. And I can use this anywhere I want. So that is how modeling in Revit kind of works. All right, so back to our mission at hand. We are creating this wall, and we're trying to use this fidelity, this level of detail where we're creating all the, actually this one, where we're creating all of the different elements here.
So do you guys have an idea of how model in place works, guys? Is there any questions about it? What do you say, Marvin? Any questions? Is Marvin there?
I am here. Question. For me, not really a question. I don't really have a question at the moment.
All right, that's fine. That's fine.
Hey, sorry, I have a question. Are we using a model in place to create the structure, the timber structure?
Not exactly. We're going to use 3 different methods to create it. So I was just kind of showing you how model in place works in Revit, right? Because trust me, like when you're working on your design project, there are some cases where you need to create a new family. We did that last week, or you might want to use model in place. So that is just how model in place works in Revit. We're going to use another method to create the structure. All right. And the class exercise is going to be, you just need to submit this wall to me that we're creating. All right. All right.
All right.
All right. So let's continue.
To create this wall. All right. So let's minimize this here. Let's put this over here. All right. So of course, I'm going to delete all of these. I'm going to go into this model in place here, and I'm going to delete that. I'm going to go into this model in place here, and I'm going to put it back as how it was. All right, I'm going to say okay, then I'm going to say okay again. So remember, all I needed was this piece of timber, and now I'm going to use this piece of timber to duplicate it to create the rest of these elements here.
Sir, what's the size
So I
of that?
choose okay here.
It's a 2x4.
All right, thanks.
Now I have this single piece of timber here. Now I could go to my elevation view, so I could make it the height of 1 level here. You know, let's imagine that this is 1 level. Then I could use this view to copy them. So I'm going to go to CO, copy, and I'm just going to maybe put them 3.5. Right, there we go. All right, so back to the 3D view now. Now, as we can see here, I do have my timber that is here. All right. Now, what I need to do is I need to now build the base here and here. So I would need to now go back to model base. I'm gonna do the same thing again.
I just made it 3.5 feet.
Okay.
I'm gonna say structural framing, and I'm gonna say structural framing wall and wall plus sole plate, right? But we can use the same thing for the wall and sole. All right, now everything is gone to gray, and now I'm in the edit in place mode. And in this mode, I want to extrude going this way. So what that means is that I need to change my work plane. So currently my work plane is flat. So when I extrude, I'm going to go up, but now I want to go this way. So I'm going to say, okay, set my work plane. I'm going to put this little down arrow and say pick a plane. I'm going to pick this plane now. So now this is my work plane, right? There it is. All right. So now that my work plane is here, I could go ahead and go to create and go to extrude, because I'm going to use extrude. And I could go ahead and draw a box. In this case, I'm going to draw it like this. I'm going to just draw it first, and then I'm going to just adjust it. So I'm going to use the align tool, and I'm just going to snap that there. And then I know that I want this to be 2 inches. All right. And my height is, I will set my height afterwards. So it's going this way, but that's okay. So I want to go basically this way. All right. Then I also want this to be below. So I could use my move tool and move it down to there. All right. So with that done, I'm going to say okay to come out of this mode. So now I've created this element here, and I've created this element here. So of course, I can duplicate this element. So I'm going to go to copy, and I'm going to copy it up here. Okay, let me move it. Of course, I can do this in my elevation view, and I'll just paste it there. All right, now in terms of the covering for the walls, so this is our basic frame that we have here. All right, that is our basic frame. Now, in terms of getting the surfaces on the frame, which would be these surfaces here, we could now go back into, so we want to go into here and we go to model in place.
And you want us to do this while
and this
you're
time
doing
we
it, sir?
may
I know it's a bit quick, but don't worry. I'm going to give you some time. I'm going to give you some time. Because
I'm not going about half hour you by the time you give me the time to do it.
Oh, well, okay, that's all right. The idea is that it's the same method you use to create all the studs. They're just extrusions. So that's why I didn't like go through the slow process of creating every single stud. Because I kind of figured that by now you guys would get it. Oh, I just need to extrude this like that, extrude that like that, and so forth. But don't worry about it.
I understand that. I mean, I see extruding one and then copying and then
cut. Right.
Yeah, but you know.
But you don't have to be completely in sync. You know what I mean? But like, I would want it to be done within the class time. So that's why I say you're still gonna get time to work, to work on it.
Okay.
Right. What time is it now? Yeah, we're making good time. Because of course the surface of the wall is just going to be yet another extrusion.
We'll just choose wall because we're going to create a wall, and we're going to call this wall cladding, and we're going to use the extrude. Oh, we need to change our plane. So let me change the work plane. So I'm going to go to set work plane and set it to level 1. Actually, the work plane is here already, so I'm just going to get my tool here and I'm just going to draw it, and then I'm going to change it. So I'm going to make this 1 inch and choose OK and choose OK again. So this is the cladding, and I can, of course, can make this taller. All right, now we're not going to go any further because this is pretty much creating this wall using the model in place tools. Now,
so that is literally all you're going to create for this first wall. We're going to create about 3 different walls. And this first one, this is all you have to create. Some studs and a wall surface. You don't have to cut a window or a door or nothing like that in there. You're just creating this simple wall.
If in order to cut like a hole in this shape here, we would have to do that inside of the model in place tool. So actually, okay, let me show you an example. So let's say that I wanted to create a opening in this side. I would go to model in place and I'm going to say walls again. All right, I'm going to say cladding, and this time around I'm going to change. I'm going to go pick plane and I'm going to pick this side here. So this will be my work plane, as you can see here. And this time what I want to do is I'm going to do an extrusion. I'm going to draw it this way. Then I'm going to draw a opening like this, and then I'm going to just make a cut here. I'll trim this and trim that. Okay. Obviously this is a little thick, so what I'm going to do is say this is 1 inch. I choose OK. So that's how I have my opening. So let me delete this one, and I would then, so in order to get the wall on this side, I would just go to my plan view and I would just make a copy. And this is a good thing to do. You need to turn off constrain, so that way you can copy it anywhere. So you can put it there, and then
what's up?
I was asking you, like, how do you create another extrusion without creating a component per se? Like, how did you do the ones at the bottom? I check you didn't create another component.
Actually, I did it that way. I created multiple components. I didn't build everything in one modeling place. By the way, which you could do it that way. You could create the wall, the horizontal studs, the vertical studs. Well, the wall plate and the sole plate and the studs, and even the covering. You could create everything in one modeling place object. But I chose to create it differently. There is no like right or wrong. It's just based on how you want to create it. You know what I mean? All right.
Okay,
I
okay,
can
sir.
move it. I can move it there. So that's how we have our opening. So let me go back to 3D view, and there is our opening. And that's basically our wall. Now, to model things like this, obviously it takes a lot of time in order to get everything to be exact. So for example, now we could go into modeling our wall plates and all of this stuff, and that would take a bit more time. Now, there are some cases where you may need to model things with this amount of detail, then you would use the model in place to do things like that. Now, the next level down is going to be using some parametric tools that are already built into Revit, right? So we're going to do the same thing again, but using these tools. Now, we're going to now use the wall tool. So
All right, guys. So this is the first wall that we're creating. The first one is going to be the highest quality of detail. That is where you build it from scratch. Everything, you extrude it, you build it, and build it from scratch. So I just wanted to give you a taste of what it is like to build a model from scratch in the project mode, right?
obviously this element here is a wall, so we're gonna now try to construct this again using the wall tool. Now when we go to the wall tool, we're gonna go to the little down arrow. No, we're gonna click on the wall tool. Now, just like with any family element in Revit, we can click this little down arrow here and we get all the different types of element. But I want to highlight something. The wall tool is divided into 3 categories. You have basic wall, and then you have a bunch of variations of that. You have curtain wall, and you have a few variations, and then you have stacked wall, right? And this is a wall that changes in height as it goes up. Now, we're going to create this using a curtain wall option. Now, there are 3 options here we can choose from: not defined, glazing, or storefront. So we're going to choose not defined, and this might be different in different versions of Revit. So we're going to choose this one, and we're just going to draw a wall. I'm going to hold shift so it's at 90 degrees. Now,
All right, so do you guys have not defined in your Revit?
Don't know, we have to check.
Okay, all right.
Let me check.
I think it might also be based on the template. In this case, in my Revit that I'm using, when I choose new, because this is just a blank project. When I choose new project, I just went ahead and worked with this multidiscipline template. So I wasn't using residential or commercial. But for me, this is what comes up as the default. But depending on the version of Revit you're using, this might not be a default. So you may not have undefined, I think.
Yes, sir. So should we then use the most basic looking type?
Right. It's supposed to be the most basic. It's not the storefront. It don't have nothing. It just flat.
So for mine, I say basic, not basic. I say empty.
Oh, empty. That might be it
Empty.
for you. Right, right. Cool.
Exterior glazing and storefront.
And storefront, right. So you can just choose empty. Because what happens is that depending on the template you're using, they have different names, and you can just rename it to something. So I'm showing you how to create a stud wall using a curtain wall, but starting from the most basic type of curtain wall. It don't have no pre-configurations. All right, so let's continue.
Sir, wait, so what we opening? We just opening another Revit file?
When you're opening say again, for this next wall?
For the next one, what we opening a Revit file?
No, just same file. For this exercise, it is not your project file you're using, you know. You're just opening a blank.
Yeah, another file. So open another one again or stay in the same one?
Stay in the same one. So you will have one Revit file with 3 walls in there. That's basically what we're doing. And that is the file that you would submit for this class exercise. One Revit file with 3 walls, and that's it. All right, let's continue.
When I draw this wall, obviously it just looks flat. And if I click on it here, it says that I have a curtain wall. Now the thing is, the curtain wall has some special features that you can take advantage of to create this type of wall. And it would be as, let's say, precise as modeling every single element like what we did before. But at the same time, it's good enough to show the major elements, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to click this curtain wall here. First, let's deal with the height. So we could go to the elevation view. That's this wall. And then we could set the height. Now, because we are using a parametric object in Revit, we can now use things like constraint, because this is technically a wall. It is a type of wall. So we can use the constraint height and we can constrain it to level 2. So that way this wall always stays at level 2. Let's go back to 3D view. Now, obviously this wall is very thin, and if you click on it, notice that you don't really see the options to make the wall thicker. We have to go to edit type. Now, the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to duplicate this. So we're going to hit duplicate, and then we're going to call this stud wall, and we're going to choose OK. Now, all of these are different parameters of this curtain wall. And what we're going to change is we are going to change the panel. Now, the panel, if you think about the concept of how a curtain wall works, you have frames and then you have infills or panels between those frames. So in our case, the panel here says none. So we're going to click that drop down list and we're going to pick, for now, we're just going to pick a generic 4-inch panel.
All right, now just to make sure everybody is on the same page, in Revit, when they say curtain wall, and if I just go to Google here and type curtain wall, just so we know what it looks like, you know, this is basically what a curtain wall looks like. It's essentially a grid system. It don't have to be a square grid. It could be all sorts of different shapes. And the reason why it's called curtain wall is because it's hanging. Like, it's not, it doesn't always have to be hanging, but usually it's hanging. So even if you look on the construction here, if I bring up this image here, open image in new tab, you will see that it's almost like the wall is hanging or attached and just floating in front of the building. So when we talk about panels, we're talking about what is within the frame. And when we talk about frames, we talk about this. So Revit has a wall tool specifically for creating curtain walls. And that's why we're in that category.
We're going to choose OK. So now the wall is now 4 inches, right? Which is essentially the thickness of our stud member, right? Now, the great thing about a curtain wall is that you can use curtain wall features that would not work with a regular wall, but only with the curtain wall. So in order to create these studs here, we can actually go to architecture, and if we go on to the right, we see curtain system, curtain grid, and mullion. All these options work only with curtain walls, right? So we're going to use the curtain grid to define where we want those studs to be. So we're going to choose curtain grid. And how this works, if you kind of hover on the edge, you see a grid there. So I'm going to put one, I'm going to make it the same 3.5, 3.5 again, 3.5. There we go. All right. Then these are just really a grid, and on the grid is where you put the mullion, right? So if I go back to architecture, you see where you have the mullion. You can then apply the mullion to the grid. Now, when you choose mullion, and go back here, when you choose mullion, This is the mullion that's going to be applied. It's going to be a 2.5 inch by 5 inch. And if you click the drop down here, there are some other types that you have here. And we can actually create our own mullion, but we're just going to use this built-in one. So we can actually just apply mullions there, and we can apply it to the top as well, and the sides, the bottom. Right, so we basically have our system. Now, if we want a mullion running across, right, we would have to go back to grid, and we'll have to insert another grid. So maybe put one here, and then we go back to architecture, mullion, and then we put another mullion there. As simple as that. So right away, this is already way faster, but you have to work with the system that is set up. Whereas the original method, you create, it's like you have full freedom to create any object, extrude any object, and place it wherever you want. With this one now, you have to go according to the rules. You have to create these grids, and then you have to apply a mullion. If you need a different type of mullion, you have to create a new type and then apply it to the grid. So it basically has more rules for you to follow, but then it's easier to do. Now there's a couple of things we have to do. Firstly, we don't have infills in this type of wall. So what we have to do is we're going to click the wall, go back to edit type for this stud wall we created, and we're going to say where it says panel. Remember, we chose the basic wall generic. So now we're going to choose empty, and we choose OK, and now it is completely empty, and all we have is the studs. So we are kind of back to where we were here. Also, now we want to create, we need to fix this, because in terms of construction, you would have one member at the top and one member at the bottom. They wouldn't construct this like this, but of course this is using how they would construct perhaps a curtain wall. So we need to change this. Now, of course, in this method, we could have just selected the piece of timber and move it. But here, each of this works in a system. So you have to play by the rules of the system. So we're going to go back to edit type, and we're going to, under join condition, we're going to change that to border and horizontal grid continuous. Choose OK. Now, that makes the horizontal grids always continuous, which I think is more accurate to what would be done. Now again, if we wanted to be super specific and we said we want to have only 2 members here, 1 member here, 1 member here, we want to have an angle plate here, using this system doesn't give you those details. We would have to use the system where everything is customizable, but of course it would take longer. Now we do need to get the doors, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to the wall, and this time we're going to choose, because we're not going to model the wall, we're going to actually pick a wall that's going to be 1 inch thick, which is just the thickness of the ply. We don't have a wall that's 1 inch thick, so what we're going to do is we're going to just pick the closest one, which is generic 4-inch wall. We're going to go to edit type, and then we're going to duplicate it and say we're going to call it cladding 1 inch, and then we're going to go into the structure, and we're going to change the structure to 1 inch, and we're going to change the material to be maybe like wood, and choose OK, and choose OK. And now we can draw this wall. Now we could do it in 3D view like this if we really wanted to, or we could do it in plan view. So I'm going to say, let this be finished face interior, and I'm going to start from here. Let me start from here. Now, because this is a wall, I can do the same thing. I can click this and say, I want you to go up to level 2. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Basic wall cladding 1 inch and up to level 2. All right, so we've already kind of reached back at where we were. Now we need to put some cutouts in the wall. Now, the great thing about this is that this is using the wall tool, which works with the window and the door tool. So we could actually just go to door and put a door right in the wall like that. Now it's telling us an error because obviously it's not going to cut through the other side of the door here, of the wall here. And this is what the door looks like, if we can kind of click it there. Now in order to cut the other side of this, we can just use a tool called a join tool. So we just go to modify, use the join tool. And what the join tool does, it connects two elements together and let them act as one. So for example, if I join this wall to this wall, then they act as one wall. And notice that both sides are now cut, because even though they're separate walls, because you can see I can click on them. So right now I have this wall here, and then this wall here, and then the stud in the middle, but they're still connected as one wall, which is great for our purpose. Now the other thing, of course, is that we need to cut out how we're seeing the structural members behind the door. So to do that, we're going to click on the stud wall here, and we're going to use a nifty tool. We're going to go to edit profile, and what this allows us to do is we can actually edit the shape of the wall. So for example,
What you saying?
Where is the join tool to join the two walls?
So the join tool, you have to go to modify, and then you see it there. You go to modify, and you see join. Right?
cool. Let's say I want to curve this. Let's say I want to curve the profile of this like that. And then I want to trim this like that and trim this like that. Choose OK. And it's going to be a little weird though, but it's essentially trimming the wall to match the profile. So you can edit the profile of pretty much any wall in Revit and it will match what you sketch it. So let me undo. So my thing is that I want to edit the profile, and of course I'm going to cut a hole. I'm going to just draw this way bigger like that, and then I'm going to just use the align tool and align this. I think I can use the align tool. All right, so align that to here. See if I can get to this upside down. There we go. Then align that to there and align that to there. Then I also have to deal with the base, because the base, so I'm going to delete this here, and then I'm going to split this here, and then I'm going to trim this here and trim that there. So now the profile is doing that. So I'm going to choose OK. And it's going to say it's going to have to delete some elements. And now we have our wall. Right. So that is pretty much. And the neat thing is that we have the door inside the wall. Now let me turn up. Let me put it to fine detail. There we go. So we can see the little door handle there. And if I click on this here, you can see that we do still have the structure going behind the door. And the great thing is that Revit will actually trim the structure here. Now I can still go and I can use tab and select the grids, and I can still move the grids and it will adjust to the wall. Let me hide this so that I can show you. So let me right click and go to hide. Right, so notice it's adjusting to the wall, and I can even add more. So if I go back to architecture and go to grid, I can add another grid here. And then I can add a mullion here. And you see, it's just going to trim it onto the wall. So it's going to treat it very similar to how it's treated in actual construction. But as I said again, if you want to go into really high detail to say, okay, but we want 2 pieces of lumber to be here, 2 pieces here, you would probably be better off using the manual method of modeling. Let me hide this one. So this one was very manual, took much longer. This one was using the curtain wall tool and the tools within Revit. Now we're going to do a third wall now, and this is going to be the fastest method, right? So if we can track back to where we were, all
right, guys. So this is the third wall that we're going to build. And it's going to be the easiest one. So I hope you guys are following so far.
Pretty much use the highest detail level to create this wall. And then we kind of use this one where we represented the major elements. So the major elements in the walls are the studs. Now we're going to try this, or a combination of these here, which is we don't need to have all these details. We just need to have a wall. Now to do that, we're going to go to wall, and then we're just going to use a basic wall. So let's say the thickness of this wall is about 6 inches. So we're going to choose a generic 6-inch wall, and then we're just going to draw that wall. We're going to do the same thing and make the height up to level 2. And there we have a wall. Now, obviously, this wall does not have all the details here, but Revit, if you were doing a floor plan that has many walls that are stud walls, you definitely would not use this method because it would take forever to create the walls in 3D. This other method is a bit quicker, but is not as efficient if the point is to do a floor plan with just showing the walls. For you to be going in and adjusting all of these elements would be too much. Now this, just a plain wall is great, but there's no, if we look on the floor plan here, like we can clearly see that these are stud walls, even this one that we added in. But this is just a plain old wall. Like, now this method is using symbols, right? So we're using a 2D symbol to tell us what kind of wall it is, rather than using an actual model. Now to use symbols, we're going to click on the wall, we're going to go to edit type, and then we're going to edit the structure. Now in the structure, we're going to say that, okay, the stud is going to be maybe 4 inches. Then we're going to have a cladding. So we're going to insert another structure. It's not going to be a structure. It's going to be a finish. And we're going to put this on the outside of the core, because the core is going to be the stud wall. And we're going to make that be 1 inch. And then we're going to insert another here. And we're going to move this down to the inner cladding. And we're going to change it from structure to finish 2, or it can be finish 1. And then we're going to make this 1 inch. Now let's talk about the materials. Now the material could be for the wood. Now let me go back to materials to show you something. Now when I choose material, this is the color that it will be represented on your drawing. When you cut a section through the wood, it's going to look like this. When you look at the plan, it's going to look like this, which is nothing. It's just going to be white. So we want to change the pattern of how it looks in plan, and we want to choose maybe something like, I don't know, something like this, maybe like this. This looks like wood, but it's not necessarily wood. We want to show the studs. So we would choose maybe something like, let's see, we could choose something like this, but we would need to modify it because what we're using now are symbols, right? So for the meantime, we could probably try something like this and choose OK and choose OK. And you can see where it's not exactly studs, but it does represent the wall. So if you compare these 3 types of walls, you can see that in a plan view, they look very similar. In a plan view, they look very similar. But in a 3D view, you can see where this just looks like a plain wall, actually, right? So these are the 3 different ways in which you can use to consider when you're building any object in a BIM program, right? So what we did was to model it from scratch, and this is how you get the highest level detail. Then we use some of the elements from Revit to get an acceptable level of detail that shows the major elements, or we could just use a combination of model and symbols to represent the object that we are creating in the BIM program. Okay,
all right,
so
guys.
now that we have
So that is how we would create. That is an example, and that is just with walls. But you know, the rabbit hole does go deeper. Like this has to do with furniture as well. In the case of furniture, we would probably be downloading a piece of furniture. Maybe we wouldn't be modeling it from scratch. But there are some cases where we would have to build something from scratch that we intend to use over and over. Now, when we're building something that we intend to use over and over, we would actually use the family editor. We would create that family. Remember when we created the bench? We create the bench, we put it in the project, and we copy it different places. In the case when you're in the model and you need to just create something quickly, like in this case, you need to create a wall to use, you would use the model in place mode, right? So I'm introducing you here to the different ways of modeling in Revit, and also at the different detail levels. Now, the walls one that I show you is super important because for the most part, what you do in Design Studio, you just need to show the walls. Like, it's unlikely that you will have to like model out the walls fully. In most cases, you will do the last one that I show you, where you would define the different structural layers, so that when you draw it in plan, it can show a symbol to represent maybe block wall. Or maybe some of you have a design where you have a cladding on the wall, you would use that same method, right? In other cases, there are times when you need to do a fully detailed wall. So for example, let's say that it's something special about this wall. Maybe it's a slant wall, or it's like a custom wall. Then, you know, the built-in wall tool wouldn't probably be enough for you. You would then have to create the wall from scratch, and you guys know how to do that. So what we're going to start to do now is we are going to create the walls for our project, right? All right, is there anybody here still working on that class activity? Are you still drawing the walls and stuff?
I'm still working, sir.
Okay, all right, cool. And I saw Marvin, I saw your hands up as well. All right. All right. So what I'll do, I'm gonna give you like about 5 minutes or so to wrap up. Remember, you can still, the objective of the class activity is that you just get them to me today. Right? The recommendation is you follow in class, but just in case if you're not able to follow in class, you just get it to me in today for it to count towards your class activity. All right. So even if you don't get to finish, don't fret. You still have the rest of the time. Now we do have a little time, maybe about 30 to 40 minutes to get you guys going and creating the walls in your major project. But I'm gonna give you like about 5 minutes for you to, if you were doing that wall activity, for you to just wrap up, and then we'll continue. Take a drink of water, get up and stretch. If you're sitting around a desk like me, just stand up and stretch a little bit, and then you open up your project, and we continue on our journey. All right, so 5 minutes, guys. All right, guys. Let us continue. All right, so what I want you to do, even if you're not finished with your class exercise, I want you to open up your model that we've been working on. And as I say, it should be looking somewhere around this, where you have your model and your site together, right? And what we're going to be working on is the walls, all right? So let's jump into that.
Our foundation model set. Now would be a good idea to start to work on our walls. So if we look back at our schematic sketch, this was an idea of what we wanted to do with the walls, right? Now we only have one elevation because we're still kind of in design mode, but we're gonna work out the rest of the elevation, but using this as a kind of jumping off point, right? So let's go back to the 3D view here. So what we're going to do is to try and finish this design, but base it off of our schematic sketch. So I'm going to dock the schematic sketch right beside it, so we can have this here and then have our foundation here. So the general idea is we did have a ramp going like about that, or maybe we'll have some steps because this is kind of steep. So that represents this area. So this area here represents that area there. Now we did have, for this area, we did have some steps that leads down, right? And I'm just kind of sketching in our steps so that we...
So remember, guys, that this is based on my design. So your design is going to look a little different, right? But what I'm trying to do is...
steps that's going down.
What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to just get an idea of how I plan to lay out the walls in my design. So you can do the same for your design.
It comes like about here. So the entrance, actually the entrance to our building is round about here. And we enter the building about here, and we did have a little storage area that's here, which forms a part of the building, because that storage area you access from here, so from your inside the building. So you walk inside the building from here actually, and then you have these steps that come down here. So these are the steps, and as I said, this is just like a quick sketch so that we can kind of orient ourselves to what the design is doing, now that we kind of have some parts of it in 3D. So those steps that you see there are these steps here. All right, so those are the steps there. All right, now we do have a wall that's going to be here. And actually, so let's make our walls in a different color. Let's make it orange. Yeah, so we are going to have our wall going something like that, coming straight across. Actually, it's coming all the way to the end here. Yeah, yes, it's coming. So this is the base of the wall here. It goes like that. There we go. Right, so we kind of have this step up of the wall, and this is where we will have our windows. So I think we got 2 windows here. All right, so then we didn't decide what we were going to do with this wall, so that is to be determined. And then this wraps all the way back around like that. So that is pretty much where we will have our walls, right? And I do believe we were talking about having like some large windows here, right? So we will probably add some windows in here. Now we did have an interesting element, this storage area here. So the wall actually does something like this, and then what happens is that this forms an overhang for this area here, right? And then we have the upper floor that basically starts here, Right, but we're not going to draw the upper floor just yet, because we're just working out this floor. So we just needed to have an idea of how we're going to position our walls, and then we need to determine like what do we want to do with this wall here.
Right. So it would be a good idea, guys, if you could also do a sketch like this, because at this point you might have your foundation and you have your schematic 2D drawing, you know. But for me, this kind of works. Like, I just needed to have a visual of, okay, what are my walls going to look like, right? Now, you don't need to submit this to me. Like, this is just for you and your design to help figure out what's going to happen for the walls on the lower floor, all right? And as I said, in my design, I chose to have a two-tier deck, upper and lower deck. For you, you might just have one deck level. Doesn't matter. It's not a requirement for you to have a two-tier deck. All right. The only requirement is, well, you know, it's in the handout, right? It have to be on stilts, it have to be 2 levels, and so forth.
Now, additionally, we did have a door that's going to be somewhere about here, right? And we can actually see that door is represented here. So it's going to actually be about right here, and that door is going to be here, right? This is getting a little confusing, so let us remove some of these other sketches, right? So this door is going to be here and it's going to be represented there, right? Then we would probably add a window, and if we want to get fancy, we could make this a corner window that actually wraps around like that, right? We could do a little corner window here, right? Yeah, and then in this area we're going to have like a seating area maybe, right? All right, so this will be our game plan that we want to achieve next. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a screenshot, because I want to remember this. Let me delete this. Right, and then I'm going to take a screenshot of this, but this is a part of the design process. And that screenshot, we are going to paste it on our design board that we have been using. So let's just stick it right here so we can be reminded of our plan. All right, okay, so with that said, let's build out these walls, and we're going to build it according to the sketch that we did. So we can have this here while we build out our plan here. Now, in order to build this out, we're going to be building timber stud walls here, and we do have some notes actually about how stud walls are built. So the general idea is that we need to have a base, a sole plate, which is down here, and then we need to have a wall plate, which is at the top of the wall, and then we have these studs that's going to be between. That's the general idea, and the studs form the windows and the door openings. The studs are normally mounted in some way, maybe by an angle bracket. There are other methods, and then on the outside we put cladding on each side. Now, this is going to be, we're going to imagine that this is in a tropical environment, so we won't be needing to put insulation and additional layers on this wall, right? So we're just going to be mounting our cladding directly on the frame. And this is an idea of what the frame looks like. So this is our plan for the walls that we are hoping to construct here. Now, before we get going, let us at least have an indication as to where our walls are going to be, right? So to do that, I'm going to turn on the line thickness so that I can see the different thicknesses in the lines. That's up here. And I'm going to go to the architecture tab. I'm going to go to model line, and model line will give us the ability to draw some lines in a 3D space, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to pick from some of these lines here, and we're going to kind of use this as a kind of guideline for when we want to outline stuff. In this case, we want to outline where the walls are going to be. So we want to use those lines. Now, before we draw the line to kind of outline where the walls are going to be, we only have a certain amount of lines here. So we have, for example, a hidden line. That is what it looks like. You can kind of see it there. Let's undo that. Let's look back on another line. We do have a center line. That is what the center line looks like. So we have different built-in, different line styles that's built in, but we want to create our own line style, which is we're going to use as a construction line for just telling us where the walls would be. So to do that, we're going to go over to the Manage tab, and then we're going to go over to this, and then we're going to go over to the additional settings, and then we see line styles. So right now, if I expand this, these are the types of line styles that exist, right? And essentially what we're going to do is we're just going to create a new line style. We're just going to call this concept lines, because we're just going to use it to kind of outline our concept before we actually draw the walls, right? It's a category of lines. And here we go. We have concept lines. That's right here. We are going to let it be orange, and we are going to make it be a dash line. Let's use a typical dash line. Let's try the 1.5 millimeter dash line. All right. And this, let's make the line thickness pretty thick. So we're going to put it at probably 8, and then we choose OK. Okay. Now, if we go back to model line, we see that we have our concept lines here, and if we click on draw, you can see we have it there. Now we do need to show line thickness on, well, this is, I think, way too thick. So let's go ahead and edit that. Probably put it at about 4. So go back to manage and go to additional options, line weight, and we will set our concept lines thickness to probably about 4 or 3. Yes, that's good enough. All right, let's delete that. Now, the additional thing now, before we can draw our concept lines in, if you notice, whenever we go to model line and we start to draw a line like this, you notice that it's actually behind the floor. And that's because if I click on this line, you will see that lines actually have a work plane or a level. So right now we are on level 1 lower, which is the level down here. So let's delete that. Before we draw the line, we need to go to set our work plane. So if we click this icon here, we see our current work plane is here and it's at level 1 lower. We need to set that to level 1 upper. There we go. All right, so now we can go ahead and draw our lines. So based on what we have here, this is pretty much going to be where our walls will be. And then we have this element that's coming out like that. It's probably going to be in the center of this wall here. So I'm going to put a mark here, and then I'm going to use the trim tool to trim up this wall here. All right, then, so that's this little area here that I'm doing. Let's join this back here. Let's see how big this is. This is about 2 feet. So let's make it, I think 2 is enough. Yeah, let's make it 650 millimeters. Yeah, there we go. So that's going to be, that's this area right here. I'm not sure, this space looks a little small. If I click this line here and I move this dimension to here, I have about 3 feet, a little more than 3 feet to go between here. So maybe that's too small. Let's make it 4 feet. There we go.
Right. So as I was saying, guys, this part of me drawing is really based on my model. And what I'm doing here is that I'm just trying to figure out where my walls is going to go. And this is partially because I'm still in the design process. Like, even though I have that floor plan, I just want to have an idea of where my walls are going to fall. Now for you, maybe you don't need to do this. Maybe you will just start drawing walls in. It's totally up to you, right? But we are going to use the intermediate method for creating walls. So we're not going to use the basic wall, and we're not going to use the custom created wall where we build it from scratch. We're going to use the middle one where we use the curtain wall tool. All right. So for those of you who maybe are jumping ahead and actually drawing your walls, this is super important, guys, because it's going to be linked to your grades. Now, in your wall, we must see the studs, meaning that you can, let me go back again to the sketch that we had done. Do I have it here? What's activity? Where is it? Man. No. Okay, maybe I don't have it in this. Where do I have? Okay, I'll find it, guys. But basically, when I'm marking your model, I must be able to see the studs in the wall. And I can tell you this because some persons, when they submitted the work, they just use a regular wall, the basic wall, right, that have no studs. There is a part of the grading criteria, if you look on your grading sheet, that where I'm marking for the visibility of the stud and the wall plate and the sole plate. Now, that means that if you want, you can use the highest fidelity of detail, meaning modeling every individual stud. You can do that if you want, but I am going to be recommending that you use the curtain wall as a way to do stud walls, because that is what we're going to be using in this example. All right, Deshaun, you follow me? Deshaun here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. So make sure that you just don't use the wall tool and draw a wall, right? Make sure you have the studs in your wall, right? Okay, let's continue.
Light here. Now, before we start drawing, let us look what level we're on. So we need to be on the level 1 upper. That's on this level here. And the top of our curtain wall needs to go to level 2. All right, so with that said, let's create this wall. We're going to create it to right here. All right, there we go. So we have our first wall that we're creating here. Now, this isn't exactly a stud wall because it has windows and frames, because this is a storefront curtain wall.
Right, so notice, guys, that I use a storefront curtain wall. I didn't start with a blank wall. So you guys can do the same if you want. I rather start with the curtain wall and just modify it from there.
If we take a look on the shaded mode, you can see where it actually has the mullions and an area for the glass. So if I tab through this, there is the actual glass that's represented there. Let's look at it in high detail. Right. So we want to change this to represent more of a stud wall. So in order to do that, we're going to actually go into this curtain wall tool here, and we're going to duplicate this and call it stud wall, which is okay. Now for our curtain panels, we don't want any panels inside because it's just going to be empty. So we're going to choose system panel empty. Then if you look at how the curtain wall is constructed here, we want the top rail to take precedence and then the middle studs mount into the top stud. So we want to choose this option to let border and horizontal grades be continuous, and let's choose okay. All right, so this is what we have so far. I think that's okay. Maybe this wouldn't necessarily be here. Maybe it would be further in the center, this middle brace piece, and maybe there will be more than one. So let's go back into edit type, and we're going to adjust the horizontal spacing. So horizontal spacing, so the spacing is 2400 millimeters. So we're going to change that to 900 millimeters. Let's choose apply. There we go. And it may or may not have horizontal members here. It's going to be just representational, so we'll use that for now. All right, so let's go now and create another wall, and we're going to use the stud wall curtain wall option, but this time we're going to choose our drawing plane to be the level 1 lower. So it's going to be down here. We're going to draw it out to this point here. Actually, we need to align those. So if we take a look here, I believe, yes, so we need to align them. So we're going to use the align tool, and we're going to click, there we go, and align, there we go. All right, so it's just telling us that they're intersecting. All right, so we're going to put the other walls in. Actually, we do have a wall going around here, so Let's go to our curtain wall tool, and we want to go to the level 1 upper, and we're going to choose the, let's see. Right, so the location, so when we go to create this wall, the location is of the drawing the wall is in the center. So we're gonna go here, 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 and here for now. All right, so we're gonna actually shorten this wall here, and we also need to pay attention to how the wall is built. So for example, we're gonna have this wall attached like that. Then for this wall, we're gonna have this attached here, and then this looks a little funny here because this is not how it would be built in reality. So we might have this up there and align this to here. There we go. Then align that there. All right, so we're building out the frame of our ground floor here, right? So let's see if we can, yes, we're gonna offset, oh, okay, and this top here, there we go. All right, so we're building out this framework here, then we're gonna come all the way across.
So guys, so you can see that I'm now building out my frames using the curtain wall tool. So you guys should be doing the same, and what I want you to do is just to pay attention to how like the corners and stuff, how they meet, right? And this is basically what you should end up with.
Wall coverings on, right? So let's also take a look on our drawing. Let's go back to the schematic sketch. Let's put it over here. All right, so we did say we want to go around, we want to come in, then we wanted to have the door here. So we're going to put the door this side here. Actually, let's align this wall to the center of this wall to the grid. Yeah, we want to stay on the grid. Now let's fix this wall here. Okay, let's use our line. There we go. All right. Now, according to what we have here, and we are going to have some steps that come down here. We're going to have some steps here. We're going to have a doorway that's going to be here, and a doorway here, and 2 windows. So let's put in the doorways. So to put in the doorways, we are going to use the edit profile tool, and we are simply going to draw a door. Now we can adjust the size of this door after. So we're just going to put the door in first. We're going to trim here, and then we're going to align this. So now this is the profile of this here. We're also going to add another window here, and we're going to align the top of this to that. So the windows are aligned. Now we're going to adjust the size of the windows after, so I'm not really worried about it. I'm just going to make them 600. I'm going to make the door 900, and let's shift this over. It was okay. So you can see we have now the framing of the door. So now, as I said, this is using the curtain wall system. So some of this, like for example, the way how this is done is not exactly how they would do it in construction. Now we can go in and actually start to modify these, but for our purposes, we don't need to do that for our objective here. We just need an accurate representation of the concept of the construction.
All right, guys. So you don't need to go in and give me every nut and bolt and angle plane, right? So I say that again because some people had gone ahead and do that. I just need a representation of the concept of construction, meaning the concept of the construction is stud members with a base for the wall plate, for the sole plate, and a base for the wall plate at the top. That is all that is required. All right, so I don't want you to underbuild or undermodel, and I don't want you to overmodel at the same time. All right.
Then offset it about 2 inches. Then I'll align this here. Then this was, we made this the distance of the window, so I'm going to move this dimension here and make this 600, and the door we made 900. All right, this door is actually lower than up here, so this door is going to actually be shorter. This window might be taller though, so we're going to leave that for now. All right, so those are our windows. All right, now we did say we wanted to have another window here. What we can probably do with this door is we're going to have a transom at the top, so we can actually go in and edit this door. Now some of these decisions are being made on the fly because, as you recall, this is from a schematic design, so we really only worked out one elevation, and then we're just going to see how we deal with the other elevations as well. Probably we're just going to mirror it So we're just going to put the window over here just to mirror these windows here. Okay, so we're going to go with a wraparound window here. So let's do a profile, and we're going to maybe start it from about here, right? And so this is one, that's the window there. Then we're going to deal with the other half of the window, which is going to be here. Now we're probably going to need some reference lines in order to align these properly. Okay, let's see what we can do. So we're going to draw this window in like about there. It's okay. All right, so there we have that. But as I said, we need to align these members together. Edit the profile. I don't think we're able to align to the grid there. So what we're going to try to see, now, if we want to align these together and also maybe align these together, the best way to do that would be from like a section or elevation view. So let's go to our plan, and what we're going to do is let's do a section. So we're going to go to view and section, and we could actually draw a section. Let's do one like that. Now, once we draw the section there, under our views, we're going to look under building section, and we should see a new section there. All right, so see, we have these two that needs to be aligned. So now we can click on this and go to edit, and then we can align that. Also, oh, the bottom is already aligned. That's good. All right, good. So we choose okay. Let's look at that here. All right, so we have our wraparound window all done. I'm going to carry this in some more because this looks a little funny. Yeah, okay, that's fine. All right, now in reality, what happens here is that there still needs to be structural support, but usually that column is behind this area here. So we will add in that like a stud here, but not at this corner. We could add that in on the inside so that from the outside it appears as if the window wrapped around. All right.
And again, guys, that is a feature that I choose to have in my building. There is no requirement that said that you have to have a wraparound window or corner window. I just choose to have it here because these are some special, I call them, design features that I want to have in my building. All right. Okay.
All right. And we can make the height. Let's adjust the height from the floor to be 600. And let's adjust the height of the window. Yes, the height of the window to be 1800. Actually, you want to adjust the bottom to be 18. So we keep the top at 2 feet. All right. All right, let's go back and edit these windows here. Now notice you can click on the individual elements or you can click on the wall. So make sure that you're clicking on the wall, and you want this to be 600, and we want the height of the window to be 1800. Okay, we need to adjust the temporary dimensions from this. Okay, so here we go. Okay, there we go with the walls. Now we are going to need we're going to actually put a rail in here that goes down. So we'll do that at a later time. We need to put the column here that goes all the way up for the structural support. So we can use this stilt column that we used before. So we're going to go to column, and we're going to go to architectural column, and there we go. Oh, we need to set the base, like where the column is going. Okay, let's put it in first. Okay, there it is. So we need this to be at the level 1 lower, and level 1 lower, and the top goes to the level 2. All right, now we're going to move it into place. And we can use the plan view, put it right there. So this is going to be our structural support there. Okay, so now we need to add the coverings for the wall and the windows and the doors. So to do that, we can use the 3D view, or we can use the plan view, whichever. So if I'm in the plan view here, and just so we understand, I'm going to delete this section view because I only needed it temporarily to help with the windows. So it's going to delete the drawing as well. Now in this plan view, notice that the floor is not showing the wood material, but that's okay. We can still identify where it is, or we could go to shaded view. That would show us where it is there. So I'm going to keep it on hidden line. All right, so what we need to do is to put on those wall coverings. Oh, we do need to adjust this wall. This should actually be on the grid. To move this in, adjust this. You want to make sure that all your walls are centered on your grid. Okay, there we go. Hello? Yeah.
All right, so that is another point, guys, that you want to make sure that your walls are centered on the grid, right? That's something that I'll be looking out for as well, because you have your grid lines there. So just double check and make sure that they're centered.
And then we're going to go to edit type, and we're going to duplicate it and call this wall cladding 25 millimeters. And then we're going to go into the structure and change this to 25 millimeters. And let's change the material to wood. Oh, it's wood already, and choose OK. All right, then now we're going to change the location line from center to maybe finish interior face. And then we're going to start to draw from these here. Let's turn off the line thickness. All right, so we can actually draw. So this is what the wall looks like, and this is the cross hatch for that wall. We can actually edit this cross hatch, but let's leave that for now. Then right now this wall is on the level 1 lower, so let's move it to the level 1. Then let's set the top constraint to level 2. That's good. So we're going to make this wall the full length here. So if we look on that in 3D, there is that wall that we did. Now, of course, we need to edit this part here. So to do that, we're going to use the same profile, and we are just going to draw a profile like that. All right, so that's the profile of our wall. Let's choose OK. So now we have that profile all done.
Sir, for the
Okay,
profile,
so
just made a thin wall.
Yeah, you can just use a thin wall. You
That's
can just
right,
make a
over.
generic thin wall.
All right, sir.
now what we're going to do is let's see if we can duplicate this mirror, or let's see if we can mirror this, and then we'll align. There we go. And we need to make some adjustments. Let's make this a little bigger. Let's go to the top view and let's put this back in the corner. Make sure that this is on the level 1 lower level. Then we're going to put the other walls in and put these on the level 1 upper level. All right, so now we've completely placed all of the walls. Okay, so now would be a good idea to place the windows before we place the outer walls. So let's get the windows in. For this, we will be using windows without, we'll be using some fixed windows. So to do this, we're going to have to go to load family, and we will look under windows here. We're going to go with, okay, we have a few to choose from here. Okay, let us try and work with these windows, and let's see if we can modify them. So let's go to edit type. Actually, before we do this, we are going to do it on the exterior. So I'm going to use the mirror tool and mirror this. Then I'm going to delete this tool here. Then let's put back these windows and let's remove the mounting. All right, we could, for the exterior, we could go without the sill. There we go. So it's just plain. Then let's choose the same dimension as the window. So the width is 600, the height is 1800. All right, and we can actually move this around so that we can align this. There we go. So we have the sill height here.
Yeah, go ahead.
You said to center it on the grid, right?
The wall. Yeah.
But,
I mean, that's recommended. But
yeah, because when I center it on the grid, like it takes a lot in on my internal space per se, and like my floor slab is like projected on my floor.
right. Because it depends on how you position the grid. So, the proper way to do that is really that you would want. The proper way to do that is when you draw your walls. If the walls that you draw has their location line at the center, then you're supposed to put your location line on the grid. So what do I mean by that? Like, so for example, if we well, this is not always on top. Okay, hold on. Okay. Right. So for example, if I draw a wall right? The location line that you see here determines where the center line is. So in this case, the location line is in the center. But when I could also choose to draw a wall where the location line is on the finish face interior. So that way the location line is here, right? So when I click on it, you can see these two dots here that tells you that the location line is on this side, and this one that the location line is here. Now, whenever you draw a grid, the ideal way, this is the what you call best practice, is that the grid should go where the location line is. So in this case, the location line is in the center, so it should go in the center of the grid. And in this case here, the location line of the wall is at the end, so you would put it here. I mean, as I said, guys, this is just best practice. You could still have your grid here and make it align with the center of your wall like that. You know, sure, it's not going to cause your Revit to explode, but Revit is a tool. You guys are just learning it now, but like the more you use it, the more you will realize that the best practices is something that they add up and they will bite you in the butt in the end if you don't follow the best practice. You know, sometimes it's something small like location of the location line of the wall, and then what happens is that when you reach further down in your drawing, you realize that, oh crap, you know, I should have made the location. I should set my location lines appropriately when I'm drawing the wall. If I want it to be in the center, I should set it in the center and so forth. Because later down, when you try to adjust stuff based on your location line, it's going to be dependent on how you created it in the first place. So with that said, what I'm marking for is, I am marking for you having your grid and to show that your walls are aligned with your grid. So regardless of wherever your location line is, if you have a grid line here, I'm using the grid lines to track where your structure, how your structure is laid out. It is up to you how you want to align it to your walls. If you want to align it like this or like that, totally up to you. It doesn't have to be in the center. All I'm advising you is that if you choose to align it to one side, the best practice is to move the location line of that wall so that it is aligned with your grid. It's just a good practice for you to have in Revit generally. All right?
Okay.
Yeah, man. All right. Let's proceed.
Let's see. That's okay. Okay, let's copy this. Now let's adjust this wall here. Let's align edge of this. Okay, hold on. Let's see if we can select it. There we go. And let's adjust this.
Our case might be a little different because we're using a wall for the center, and then we're also using a wall for the covering. This is for the cladding, right? What I would do in that case, if I was creating a wall like that, is that, right, in this case, the curtain wall is acting as the core of our wall, and then the cladding is acting as, let's call it, the finish, right? So how I would arrange my location line there. So imagine that I have a curtain wall here. Let me see if I have one built in this project. Oops. Yeah, good. I have a storefront. So let's say I'm using this as my my grid, my stud this here.
Sir, what was the thickness of the panel? Like 1 inch?
Yes, 1 inch. Right. So I can let me see. How would I do it here? Oh, well, with curtain walls, your location line has to be in the center, so you can't change that. So yeah, that is just how it is. Cause you see here that the location line for curtain wall it's grayed out because it has to be in the center. So that's fine. That's fine. So if I had my grid line in this case, my grid line could be anywhere. You know, it could be on one end here, or it could be on my center location line. Doesn't matter. But if you, for when you guys are doing your drawings, your for your housing project or whatever, chances are you won't be using the curtain wall. You'll be using a regular wall, and that is when that rule of wherever your location wall is for your regular wall, you want to try to put your grid on it as a best practice. All right, let's proceed.
Then we're going to call this main door. Let's just call it main door for now. And we'll make the width be, I think it was 900. Oh, actually, okay, let's go for a bigger door. 36 by 80. Yeah, this one. There we go. And if we look at our wall, look back at our profile. Let's see. That was 900. Yes, it was. Okay, so we're going to make this 900. Oh, wait. Actually, okay. We can use the arrow keys to actually nudge this over. There we go. All right, so let us do the rest of this. Let me mirror this. We're going to do the same thing for this and same for this. Let's pick a window and we're going to call this one. We're going to duplicate it and call this front window. We're going to let the width be, no, I think this width was, let's look at the profile. It was 1200 actually. I think this one we can put back the mounting. And if I believe, let's see if this will work. Let me open this up, and if we go to the move tool, we can grab this in the center. Actually, what we can do with these windows to make sure that they're centered is that we can go to the plan view, and this is that space that we have here, so we can actually just move it, just grab it at the center of the window and move it to the, see if we can get to the center of this space here. So let me use my, if I use my dimension tool and I say from here to one edge of this window, no, actually, let's use the model line, and if we, okay, let's use the detail line because we don't want to have to worry about the height. So if we use the detail line to outline this, and the shortcut for detail line is DL, there we go, and we can actually move this using the center. There we go. So we use this as a kind of a construction line, and the thing about the detail line, we don't have to worry about it being in 3D space, right? So now we know that this is centered, and we can do the same thing with these other windows here because we need to center them in this space, and I don't think we're going to find the center of this space so easily. Let's see. Yeah, that's the center. Do the same thing here. Okay, let's go back to 3D view. Okay, so let's get in these other windows. So these windows here, we actually didn't rename this, so we need to rename it and call these main windows so that we can identify them easily. All right.
Right. Always a good idea that when you create your windows and doors, when you duplicate the family, give it a name that you can recognize. All right.
When I mirror this, it should. Yep, there we go. All right, let's close up these walls. Okay, so we need to add in a window here and a window here. We could just, oh, there are actually 3 windows. Let's go from plan view. Okay, so here are the windows. So it needs to go in here. So let's grab this. Don't think this is the center because they got 2.
Whoa. Oops. Okay, give me a second here. Did I mess this up? Give me 1 second, guys.
Okay, so
Right. Right. So I was dealing with that corner window. My bad. I seem to have pressed something.
this is our outer wall here. So we're going to go to wall and we're going to use curtain wall, the storefront, and we're going to start from here and we're going to draw the first wall all the way to the end there. So that is
So what I'm doing here is that I'm using a storefront as my window, right? So you don't always have to use a window for a window. If your design has something that looks like if it has a design that you don't have a window to represent, you can use a storefront as a window. So the curtain wall is like very versatile because you can use a curtain wall as a wall, you can use a curtain wall as a window as well, right? So what I'm doing here, that corner detail that I have it as these triple windows that's right here. So rather than choosing 3 different windows, I just chose to use the curtain wall as my actual window.
open this wall up and we'll do the same thing here. Kind of open this up. Right, so you can see that we have the wall here. Now, in order for this to be a corner window, we would need to take this all the way to the end. So let's align and let's align this with...
Yeah, man, go ahead.
Sure, so you're saying we can just put a glazing in the window openings in the curtain wall instead of like putting an actual...
Well, you do have to use windows because I mark for windows. Well, so right, so you would have to put a curtain wall in that space. It wouldn't be practical. From a construction point of view, that's not how it would be built. And we're still guided by that principle when we're marking, right?
All right, sir.
So I would use a regular window. Don't forget that you have to use louvers in the design. It don't have to be louvered windows, but somewhere in your design, you have to use louvers. You can choose if you want to integrate it in your window, in your door, or you just want it to be a separate thing. In my case, I chose to make it above my doors. You have a transom that is louvers. That's how I chose to use it. But it's a decision that is totally up to you guys. How do you want to incorporate louvers in your design? All right, but we're going to come to that. So, we're going to be doing this for the next couple of weeks. So, don't worry about it. We'll cover that.
Now we're
pretty much at the end of...
Also, let's align
this session.
The depth of the curtain wall. So let's go to a plan view, I think. Yeah.
So again, what I'm doing here is that I'm using a curtain wall as a window
itself, and we want to drag that to the grid, and the same thing for this side. There we go. Looks a bit confusing from the plan view, but if we go back here, you will see that's what we have. Now we actually need to carry this all the way to this edge here and carry this one. If we can find the end, there we go. Okay, no, wait, there we go. All right, now what we need to do is we need to use tab and tab into the frame, and we need to unpin it, then delete it. Same thing for the other frame. Unpin and delete. All right.
So notice, guys, that you can actually delete elements in your curtain wall, but you have to unpin it first. All right. So even if you're creating the studs and for whatever reason you don't want a stud to be in a location, you can actually just tab into that specific curtain wall element or that stud and just delete it.
We're going to edit the wall profile of this wall and this should work. Yeah, we have some weird lines here. There we go. So you can see the wall profile is like this. Okay, now we need to do the same thing for this wall here. Okay, so we're going to align this. All right. Now we do need to figure out the internal walls, but we're going to do that in just a bit. we just have one more door, and this door here should have the transom above it. So we're gonna copy this door, put it there. Oops. And line this. Okay, let's look at the top view. Now we did say we wanted to have, hold on a minute, I think this needs to be flipped. Okay, let's save. Right, so we do want this to have a transom above. So we're gonna insert like a louvered window. So we are gonna Windows. We're gonna have to import this window. So let's look under Windows. Let's see if we can find. There we go. All right, that's it. Now we know the width of this window is 900. All right, now we can deal with the internal walls. So we need to. Okay, we can use this one. Oops. All right, so it also duplicated the windows as well, so we don't need that. So now what we want to do is attach. Okay, wait, let's fix this. Now what we're going to do is attach these together. So we're going to use the join tool. We're going to join this wall with this wall, and that will automatically give us all the cuts. So let's use the join tool and join this wall with that wall, and this wall with, and this with that. All right, and with that, that is our walls that we have.
So guys, so this is where, this is our objective for this week, right? I want us to complete all of the walls for all of the ground floor walls for your project, right? Put in all the windows, put in all the doors. You're going to be using the curtain wall tool, or you can do it the manual way that we did in our class activity, where you actually draw every stud if you want. But my recommendation is going to be using the curtain wall tool, which is in the tutorial video that we're doing here. So I want you to use the rest of the class time to try and get this done. Now, over the next couple weeks, right, is, if I look back on our let me look back on our class schedule here. Here. No. Here. Right. All right, let's look back at our class schedule. So we are now at checkpoint 3, right, guys? And checkpoint 3 is going to go from now till October 25, which means that is on October 25. After that date is when I'll be marking checkpoint 3 and grading it. So every class, we're pretty much going to be doing walls, floors, railings, roof. And we're going to split that across the next 3 classes. Now we do have a holiday that is coming up on October 20th. That Monday, we're not going to end up having class, right? So it's almost like we have 2 weeks. So next week when we meet, we will be doing stairs, walls, roof, and all of that stuff. And you will have the following class, we won't have class, so then you'll have to just work on that on your own. All right, guys? So this, as I said, this is the biggest checkpoint, so I want you guys to just try and keep up with this checkpoint. Pretty much after this, your building should be done, because it incorporates walls, roofs, and everything. All right? As usual, in the lecture session, well, if we have any time, we can take questions about the major project. So if there's anything like your wall's not working or there's some issue with Revit, we can deal with it in the lecture session, just in case you figure that while you're working on it and class finish, you can just take the questions to the lecture session. All right, guys, any questions so far? Any questions? All right. Was there any messages? that I missed? No. Oh, hold on. I see one. Okay. Yes. Generally, I see a message. All right. So, guys, that is pretty much the end of this class, right? The only thing that is due is going to be the class activity. I will add so when you go to the class website, you're going to see another button appear here for class activity 4, where this is where you will submit the wall that you built today. As usual, just give me the Revit file and a picture of it, and that will be your class activity 4. So this will pop up in the next half an hour or so. All right, guys, I will see you later for the presentation, which will last for 15 to 20 minutes, right? Right, topic 5 and 6. Right? Last time I went a little bit overboard, so let's try and keep it within the time. All right, guys, see you later.